The northeastern states are heavily dependent on the centre for funds. Hence, the union budget is an important instrument for these 8 states, especially since an entire central ministry is dedicated to the development of the region. But the fundamental question is...
The question that needs to be asked is, who is development and whose development? And this is a philosophical question, but I think it is pertinent to raise this question. Which form of development are we talking about, and whose development are we talking about when we talk of the region to be developed? When you look at the Lucas India Policy Vision documents, initial draft introduction in that, it comes with an argument that the region is lagging behind primarily because of the absence of private investment. Now you begin with a premise that since there is no private players involved, the region is lacking behind. Now if you have this premise, the only conclusion that is going to come is only bring in private players that will change the scenario. My question would be, is it that premise proper enough?
It's very difficult to set up businesses, and if you set up businesses, to sustain it. There have been aberrations, there have been few businesses, few entrepreneurs who've done amazingly well. But I don't think so. And there is also space for a lot, but not the motivation for people to come back, because it's not just insurgency. Insurgency is just one aspect of it. The other aspect is that there is an institutionalized, corrupt, parallel governance that runs out there, and you have various kinds of nexus out there which has been investigated. In fact, the politician, bureaucrat, insurgent nexus was the first investigation of the National Investigative Agency in North Kachar Hills. NIA's first assignment actually after its formation was in Assam to investigate the politician, bureaucrat and insurgent nexus. Now it becomes very difficult for entrepreneurs to sustain their enterprise given such a culture of and such a nexus of corruption.
The sad scenario is the relationship between the state government and the center is about a client-patron relationship. So that the transfusion of the entire 90% of the funding, financial resources are all coming from the center, right? Even that 10% one is not sure whether the state is able to generate through revenues. Now, to say that the state is, the fact of the matter is state is not at this present juncture, not contributing into the development scheme. It is the whole center investment, the money being pumped in from the center that is helping the state to run, the governments to run. But the question needs to be further asked, is it then that state doesn't have any resources, doesn't have any capability?
Inefficient and overstaffed state administration is a big constraint for development. State administrations across the regions are weak, and we can also say that in several fields they are very corrupt. A large amount of public fund is diverted for salaries if you have a big state government, which are adversely affecting capital formation in the public domain, and a huge amount of revenue expenditure is also causing serious fiscal health of the northeast states. So it is at most important to restore or to institute the fiscal health of the northeast states on a sustainable basis.
Concessions are given to northeast, even through the grant in aid money are given into these areas. Rather, revenue is generated very less from northeastern states in the central revenue budget, you can say. So through the budget, if programs can be taken, so indirect measures can be taken for the poverty alleviation or further employment generations. And in the budget, some provisions can be there, allocations can be made to encourage those type of small-scale industries for these floriculture and other products, as well as for the processing units. Similarly, fruit processing industries can come up here. Only one is there in the northeast, in Tripura, that is called the Neramak. So they process the orange as well as the pineapple products there. But in other areas, in Meghalaya, you see so much of orange is produced, but no processing units I see so far. So similarly, it can come up in Assam and other areas. PRC is another product of the Meghalaya, but no processing of that is done so far. So these are the things that can be developed.
I expect that focus would be more on agriculture, agricultural infrastructure, because that is the most important thing for meeting various requirements for improving our production, supply, as well as helping the farmers or improving the economic condition of the farmers. And also it would be the most potent tool for controlling inflation. So in that context, I feel there should be a huge focus on, I expect a huge thrust on agricultural infrastructure, which is going to be a basic necessity. Secondly, I am very hopeful about the Ministry of Food Processing, because it is for the first time that we have a separate cabinet minister exclusively for this ministry. And even in the presidential address, the opening of the budget session, we heard that the government is going to focus on food processing. That is extremely important, because even though whatever we produce, huge is wasted. If we can increase the strength of the food processing sector, obviously we can cut down on our wastage as well as help in the longer run.
I would still tend to believe, even if great economists would say that agriculture as a primary sector has failed, so we have to look for other sectors. Any economy, for me, sustenance of the very basic life is the first mantra. So agriculture has to be taken seriously. Conversion of agricultural land into different industrial sector like brick industry and so on, one needs to seriously question. That I will look into this. Infrastructural development is need of the hour, but there could be several other industries based on agriculture and what you called horticulture, for instance. These are areas that one can think of in terms of horticulture and export of that. Then you have floriculture, that is, if you look at Kunming in China, the entire city is said to be a floriculture city. The whole flower culture, how you export the flowers itself could be one of the. Then you have medicinal herbal plants, which can still be thought of, as one form of industry.
Government must create awareness about food processing. What are the facilities or incentives or subsidies or promotional, industrial promotional things are available in the state of Tripura for betterment of investor or entrepreneur, food processing entrepreneurs. So at that level, there is a policy, there is incentive for entrepreneurs, but this message is not going to real beneficiary. Whatever on the paper, see, for example, there is many subsidy. There is a NEIP, and there is a Tripura Industrial Investment Policy. In that policy, they are giving transport subsidy, but many of them they don't. They are not knowing. For example, if anybody want to procure, or anybody want to take raw material from mainland India, so from Siliguri to any point of Northeast India, they will get subsidy, transport subsidy, 90% central subsidy and 10% state subsidy. That is 100% subsidy. Even the state government is also giving subsidy on interest subsidy at the rate of 3% up to 5 year interest subsidy.
From the budget, the expectation should be the development of the infrastructure, whether it is railway, whether it is road communication, because apart from the Assam still, as I mentioned earlier, all other northeastern states not connected with good roads, all weather roads, and all the parts are not still accessible. And similarly, the railways have not reached everywhere. Similarly, if you want to have some industries which will have some potential to be competitive in the outside world for its export, as a part of the look-east policy, you want to export with the eastern countries. And so there you have to earn your competitive advantage. So you will try to produce the goods at the cheaper rate, otherwise nobody will accept your product at the higher price. And for that you need power, etc., and the skilled manpower. I think skilled manpower, there is no dearth of it. Many unemployed people are still there. Only some specific skill development can be there, especially in the IT sectors, computer, etc., which has a great potential in the Northeast also. And power is an important obstacle. I am staying in Nehu, and you know that only 1 month back, every day we were getting 6 to 8 hours load shedding. And in a premier institute, if we have such problem, you can imagine what would have happened in the interior villages. So under that situation, it is very difficult to run a good industry here. So neither it can be function properly, nor the production can be operated in an appropriate manner.
The former union budget is not inclusive enough, because the benefits that will be reaped by the Northeast region used to be less in the former budget. This is how generally the people in the Northeast view the union budget. Sectors like tourism and IT-enabled services have good potential here in the Northeast region. But looking at the former budget, union budget, these were not given due emphasis. So we are looking forward eagerly the new budget, the forthcoming budget, and we believe that if more infrastructures to these sectors are provided, and there will be a scope for improvement in these sectors.
We all know that road conditions in the regions are in poor shape, in horrible situation in several parts of the region. Air connectivity is also very, very limited. Road, air and rail connectivity in the region is crucial, not only to improve quality of life, but also to enhance connectivity within the region and to integrate the region economically. In this regard, it is my submission that infrastructure financing to private-public partnership may not be able to bring optimal provision in the region.